p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time. It's a little bit after 8 past 6 now. Welcome to the show. This is Saad here in southeast London, and we've got in London here, I will say, blue skies, few clouds, but nice and warm. And with me tonight, as usual, is Gregory. Gregory, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, and just like you have in London, beautiful clouds out there, blue skies.
And of course, you're in Brussels, if I'm right.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Okay, welcome again. Dear listeners, the aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abrushin. And every week we have a new topic. The topic for tonight is, what is love without justice? What is love without justice? And as usual, you're welcome to join us with any questions or comments. The number to contact us on our UK number, which is 07939641958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 00447939641958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. I'm going to begin with, what is the Grail message? The Grail message, in the light of truth, by Abrushin, is a spiritual knowledge of life. It offers an explanation of the world, a picture of creation on the basis of natural laws. Its lectures contain valuable basic elements as a help in life, for through the knowledge mediated, the readers again brought closer to life and led back to God. The Grail message deals with important fundamental questions of life by explaining in a clear and logical way the automatic working of the laws of nature, the whole weaving of creation, allowing every process to be recognized, and thereby the purpose of our whole life. It is directed at the individual and speaks to the innate experiences of the human being, their strengths and weaknesses. Thus, every reader has the opportunity to discover, through the intuitive perception, if what is stated is the truth. Combining with matter-of-fact reasoning, a complete world picture arises, where there is no separation between the visible world and the great world beyond the five senses, nor any separation between scientific and religious striving for knowledge. I'd like to give you a couple of quotes from the author of the Grail message, Abrushin. The hearer and reader of my lectures should always work within himself, keenly probing and building bridges from one lecture to the other, as well as out into the great and small world happenings. Only then will he be able to understand the Grail message and find that it gradually shapes itself into one complete whole, without leaving any gaps. Again and again, in all the happenings, the reader will come back to the basic features. He can explain everything without having to change even one single sentence. The word of the Grail message lives, so that it permits only those people who really carry the honest desire in their souls to find abundantly. All else is automatically rejected by it. For the arrogant and those who seek superficially, the message will remain the book with 7 seals. And I'd like to finish with one more quote from the author. I wish to fill the gaps which have so far always remained unanswered in the souls of men, and which never leave any serious thinker in peace if he earnestly seeks for the truth. 39641 You can call, text or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 00447939641958. Listeners, I wanted to just say a little bit about the topic because we talk about love and then we also talk about justice, and sometimes, well, we see them maybe as separate things. And yet, in a sense, you can't think really that one can be separate from the other. So this is the topic for tonight, that what exactly is love? What exactly is justice? Do they work together? Are they separate? This is what we're going to be discussing tonight and looking at, deeply into that. So, Gregory, as you know, I like to check in the dictionary what these words mean of the title, and see what they say and explore that first. So, like I say, I've looked up the word love and justice, and this is what I found. Looking at love, I found that it is, in the one dictionary, it says an intense feeling of deep affection. An intense feeling of deep affection. And another definition given also is a great interest and pleasure in something. People say, I love football, or I love whatever they love, in terms of a subject, you could say. And then, of course, it can be a person. It could be many things, of course. So that's the meaning. I'll just repeat that, Gregory. So in the dictionary, I found love, one definition. It says an intense feeling of deep affection. And the other one, a great interest and pleasure in something. So, Gregory, can I check with you this definition that I found? Again, is that a comprehensive definition? Is it limited, or can we add to that or subtract from that?
Of course, whatever the dictionary has cannot be comprehensive. The dictionary will always give to you what it thinks, or what many people have considered love to be. These are only descriptions, but not firm definitions that one can use when discussing love. Maybe the best way to understand it is to look at the activities which are involved when love is mentioned.
Yes, and I also immediately thinking of, there's the human love, you can say, and then there's God's love. And in this definition, it is very much from the human aspect, what I have read out from the dictionary. There's no really sensing of God's love in it, because you can't say God has some deep affection into, let's say, on just the human being, or it would say God's love, you would say, is more like you use the word comprehensive, and you wouldn't, and the human one seems to be more limited or more narrow. So that's something I'm already seeing. There's some sort of a gap between how we define love. Okay, I'm just thinking. Let us also we might as well go into. Do you want to say anything further to what I've just said there, Gregory?
Well, basically, to have a better understanding, there must be a process that one refers to. So, defining something without a reference point or a reference category makes it very abstract. So maybe in the course of our discussion, it will come out very clearly rather than defining something without a basic understanding or a basic framework.
Right. So what I'll go next to then is the word justice, because that's in our title. What is love without justice? So again, in the dictionary, I found this. Justice is just behavior or treatment. Another, in the same dictionary, I also found quality of being just, righteous, equitableness, moral righteousness. So I'll repeat that again. So the dictionary definition I found for justice, just behavior or treatment. Also quality of being just, righteous, equitableness, moral righteousness. So Gregory, again, what do you think of that definition? Is that does that sound
like I said, these are not definitions. They are only descriptions,
right?
Which describes what, or sort of painting a picture, which picture is still not very precise, still very nebulous. So the dictionary will always paint a picture to some extent, and it stops there. Like one stressed, is in the course of discussions. Then one may go deeper into it to have a firm framework for it and use that one as a touch for further discussion.
Yes. So I will continue then, and I think the best maybe one way is to look at examples and study those examples and see where we can bring these things out, love and justice out. So now I've got one example here. Somebody sent to me. He said a good Samaritan was helping to save his neighbor's child from heavy floods. At the same scene, his own child needed emergency rescue, and he chose to assist the former, that is the neighbor's child, and lost his son just as he turned to assist him thereafter. He said he loved both kids. Can we say that he was just to both? So this is an example somebody's given, Gregory. Maybe I'll just repeat it again, just to give the story again. So this one question asks: a good Samaritan was helping save his neighbor's child from heavy floods. At the same scene, his own child needed emergency rescue. He chose to assist the former, meaning the neighbor's child, and lost his son just as he turned to assist him thereafter. He said he loved both kids. Can we say he was just to both? A very difficult question, Gregory.
It is not a difficult question. It appears difficult because things have been placed in the wrong framework, seen from a different perspective. And that's what makes it very difficult to follow. The scenario you just painted must have happened, that typical example, in nature. So if one uses nature as the framework, then to determine whether it is just or unjust, one must look at first the laws of nature through which everything came into existence, and to find out if those activities is carried out are in accordance. If they are in accordance, then he's right. If they are not in accordance, then one may pronounce some judgment, if one is in a position to pronounce any judgment at all as to whether he's right or he's wrong. So the first thing which must be considered must be the laws of creation through which all came into existence, and how these laws, mete out justice or mete out love. It is this framework again and again which must be considered.
Thank you for that, Gregory. So, in a sense, we do need to talk about the laws then, the laws of nature, you say. Yes, if we can talk about those laws, what are these laws? And I also want to ask in it, because we human beings, we have our free will. So in a way, we make our own decisions. So can you give, in reference to that previous example of the Samaritan and helping a child?
Well, what one may do is to present a fairly precise picture of love, of justice, see how they are connected, and then to be able to use one's intuition, or in these external activities, one is now able to see what lies behind it, to determine whether one's activities have been just, based on love or not, or based on justice or not. From the picture which many have, whenever that expression love is mentioned, one has a sensing of some attractiveness. That attractiveness. So it's as if an arrow. One tends to go very close. Hence the feeling of affection. For what you do not love or like, you tend to move away. So if one now understands that love sort of provides an opportunity for coming together, the word here, or the key word here, is love provides for further interaction. That being the case, where does justice come in? For when love has made provision for the opportunities for further activities, be it development, be it movement from non-consciousness to consciousness, those are opportunities. When opportunities are granted, it's only fair that there must be accountability on those opportunities that have been granted. That is where justice comes in. For one does not expect opportunities being granted and it being wasted, and the personality that had that opportunity not accounting for the resources which has been passed on to it in order to mature. So one can see, on the one hand, opportunities for maturity, of opportunities for association with others, and at the same time looking at, from the other side, justice, which talks about accountability, which talks about responsibility. This is basically what one must be thinking about when love and justice are mentioned. These qualities which one mentions must be sought out using the laws of nature through which all came into existence. That process, or these laws which are being referred to here, which one mentioned as the laws of nature, one can see that when love is mentioned, there is, like you stressed, the affection or the coming together. which is more like an attractiveness. One may then go forward and say, there must be something innate. That which is innate is what attracts. And the law then should be that of the attraction of homogeneity, of homogeneous species. So it is love that grants this attraction of homogeneity, or the law of attraction of homogeneous species. In the same sense, one can also go forward and mention that when an activity has been initiated, there is a process which refers to that personality that initiated that activity. That process may be referred to as reciprocity, or the laws of reciprocal action. So you find that these things are so interconnected. So as not to be left out, one can consider people on different level of maturity. For those who are at a lower level of maturity, even in school, and also consider those that are of a higher level of maturity. Here, gravitation comes in, albeit spiritual gravitation. That which is dense is below. That which is less dense rises above. So when one sort of considers these different scenarios, one can already see that these laws are so simple, are so permeable, that they affect everything that has come into existence. And the feature, love, can be seen as coming together, which at the same time is dependent on the laws of attraction of homogeneity. The same thing with justice, which one may refer to as responsibility. Whatever a personality has sown is that which they must reap. So one can say a cycle there, that's a cycle of justice, a cycle of equitableness, a cycle of responsibilities.
Thank you for that, Gregory. What I can see from what you've said there, if I look at the example of that Samaritan, helping his neighbor's child and then losing his own son, I can see love is and justice is not about anything to do with personal, something personal. It's, as you say, I think right at the beginning you mentioned about the love providing an opportunity. So it's not about, saving my son or saving the other person's child. It's an opportunity, and it's not, nothing personal in it. And so as soon as you look at it in this, if I can use the word objective, neutral way, things become very clear, rather than, you could say, I will use the word emotional in quotes, where, my child is more important, or somehow it should be saved, and the other one is not so important. And because that, again, that shows a bit of a bias personality. There's no neutrality, the love and justice already disappears when it becomes like that. So I can see from what you said, and the natural laws that you've mentioned there's no personal aspect in it. So love and justice are independent of that personal sort of affection, because he loved his son. In fact, in that example I gave, he said he loved both kids. So it wasn't about, one is more important than the other. So yes, thank you for bringing this concept, out. Dear listeners, I want to tell you you're listening to Bless Radio. It's the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abdushin. And if you are interested in knowing more about the Grail message or want to get a copy of the Grail message, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that, www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. And the topic we're discussing tonight is, what is love without justice? What is love without justice? You're welcome to join us with any questions or comments. You can contact us on our UK number, which is 07939 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 7939 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. Now, Gregory, let's try to look at now love and justice together, because we've said the topic is, what is love without justice? And I think from what you can say, you can't really separate love and justice. And but I will say there are situations similar to the example I gave earlier about the Samaritan and the two children. You sometimes wonder, is there when you give love, maybe there's an injustice you're doing, and I think the example I could use is, okay, let me use this one. Let's say somebody harms you, and then you forgive them, and so my question on that is, should it be, and it could be that, I use this example in, not that it has to be a particular religion, but let's say if you're a Christian, you say, always forgive. Let's say that's what, maybe you believe in that as a Christian. It doesn't have to be obviously being a Christian, it could be any person. And so you automatically forgive whoever harms you. And so my question is, Gregory, is that really the right attitude or the right way to deal with every situation where someone harms you? You just forgive them, like unconditionally? Similar, I know it cannot apply all the time by this way, but a mother has an unconditional love for her children, and in this case, I don't mean to refer to children, really. I mean to consider adult to adult, really. So an adult harms you, and then somehow you have the philosophy that, no, it's always better to forgive than to, or let's say take revenge or do something against that person. So is that correct? And that is, Gregory, with the question about love and justice. So is it right, Gregory, always to forgive?
The solution to these, again, depends on our inner attitude. It is said it is more blessed to other than to receive. At the same time, when you now are convinced that we are here to learn from one another in order to mature, and you are in a scenario where you were able to receive from a fellow human spirit who hasn't matured as much as yourself. The key thing here is that you have received. That means your attention has been drawn to some shortcoming that shortcoming from the other personality will enable you to go into a state of alertness. Getting into a state of alertness means that you have received something. You now know what the challenges of your fellow human spirits are. And in that, you yourself will attune yourself to find a solution to these challenges. Painful it may be, but it is something which you have been able to receive in order to find a solution to it. In finding a solution to that, you ask for help. You find that nature or creation as a whole will, one way or the other, grant you the opportunity to find a solution to such. Then, in pursuing that solution or that path, you yourself have gained so much. So it is the inner attitude. And Paul, when he himself wrote to the Corinthians, or to some other people, I'm not very precise now, he mentioned it. So one is granted an opportunity. All these, someone has hurt me, one has done that, and some of these things will then vanish. For the inner attitude now changes. It will enable you to become more on the alert. It will enable you to listen to your intuition and also find a way to make sure your intuition is always calm, such that you are able to pick up some of this happening before they materialize in this gross material world. Such is the arrangement in nature, in creation, that at every moment we are called to activities we are engaged in. Then many of the complaints which we have will vanish.
Thank you for that, Gregory. I saw that you mentioned about the maturity of the person, and one, let's say the one who has been harmed is the mature one, then the one who is harming, and so the mature one, is from what you have said, is like reflecting on what's happened, and rather than just react immediately to whatever is happening to them, they're reflecting. Oh, maybe this is, like you say, it's an opportunity, there's something to learn, a lesson to learn, and so you don't just immediately react. You think, okay, maybe there's something I can learn from this. So I guess yes. So I think when you said it depends on the situation. That is one situation, and then so when I said, "Can you forgive?" Basically in every case, it's like if the person is not of that maturity, maybe they can't forgive because they're not ready for that, and maybe they just need to have more experiences for them to sort of come to that state of being able to forgive. So yes, so you can't say in every case this is the way it has to be. Now, so I'm going to look at, let's see. So I'm going to pick another example that I've been given. Let me pick this one. Yes. It says a young black man was given years in solitary confinement for assaulting and raping his own wife, and he claims that she cheated on him. After many years, he came out a bitter man, seeing a society that justifies sexual licentiousness and freedom. He commits suicide. Was the court system fair to him? There's more question. Was the wife just to him? And can any marriage last without justice and love? So let me repeat that. Is a young black man. I don't know if that has anything to do with this in this situation, but I'm just reading it out from the scenario I've been given. A young black man was given years in solitary confinement for assaulting and raping his own wife. He claimed she cheated on him. After many years, he came out a bitter man, seeing a society that justifies sexual licentiousness and freedom, in quotes that is. He commits suicide. Was the court system... Let's start with that. Was the court fair to him?
The laws which have been put across by the law courts or the nation courts are based on very limited perception. They do not go deep enough to understand what love is all about, what the challenges are. So they are very superficial. And they ask for evidence without, on most occasions, striving to understand the motive. So you have, on the one hand, superficiality by the courts, superficiality by the investigating police people, and with that, then you have arbitrary activities, arbitrary actions. As you well know, you don't have to commit any crime or do anything wrong before you can be thrown into prison. You can be thrown into prison because you are just there. You can be thrown into prison, to earthly prison, because you have not committed any offense. So one cannot use the semblance, or one may not even talk about the semblance of justice. What is referred to in this forum are justice as regards the laws of nature, all the laws of creation, through which everyone came into existence. Only through that can one talk about real justice. Earthly justice, one cannot refer to as real justice. So one's answer is not based on the court's justice. For many times, a lot of these things are arbitrary, intellectual, cramped, and do not express any love, not granting one the opportunity first to defend himself or herself, not granting one the opportunity for reformation, but also very quick in making a decision and putting away people, albeit people who themselves haven't done anything which warrants such punishment. For many who are not strong enough, looking or reviewing the so-called justice system, they themselves feel they do not belong to such a system. And for some, they will prefer to exit the system, that is, go to a different country, or some will just commit suicide. That is not the justice or the love one is referring to here. That's which lies behind whatever you see, whatever activity that takes place, that which lies behind it, that means the motive force, which one may refer to as the intuition, that is what counts in the case of natural justice and not earthly justice, which can be as arbitrary as the people who made these laws themselves.
Thank you for that, Gregory. And just thinking, there seems to be such a lack of perfection in the human justice system. And you said you look at what is behind it. And okay, you don't expect a judge to be psychic, so to be able to work out what is this person or that person thinking when they're doing some act. So is it possible in the earthly system to achieve justice, or should we just leave it to the laws of nature to take their own course? And
It is possible to achieve justice, which may not be complete. For in most of these cases, there is, in the case where the police people are called in, these police people investigate what must have occurred. And one of the key things the police people do is to find the motive of what happened. Take, for instance, if you consider that somebody is standing by the roadside at a junction, oblivious of what is happening, and yet you have another person who is walking calmly and sees a car coming very fast. The person who is walking calmly saw the other person at the junction, gets there and pushes that person away, only for that car to run across that place. The motive why he did it is different. That's only happened because he has love for his neighbor. But in the law courts, the person who has been pushed away can go to court and say, look, I have been pushed. I've been pushed into a ditch. I haven't done anything wrong. So the person who has been pushed into a ditch can say, look, I want compensation. But he himself, who had been pushed into a ditch, may not understand the motive behind he or she was pushed into a ditch. In many occasions, there are times something happens in order to prevent us from falling into a deep malady. The person who is supposed to collect the evidence needs first to look at the physical evidence, to also use their own intuition. So also the judge must consider all this. Only a superficial judge will make decisions without deeper reflection.
Thank you for that, Gregory. I've now received a question from a listener. The question is, can love be lacking in justice and vice versa? And what he continues, what then manifest from love lacking justice? For example, giving alms out of pity without empathy. I must admit, I'm not 100% sure exactly what the question what is behind the question, but I'll just repeat it. It says, can love be lacking in justice and vice versa? What can manifest from love lacking justice. For example, giving alms out of pity without empathy. So,
In
know
the discussions,
yeah.
in the discussions that we've been holding here, one referred to the activity of love, like you mentioned, the feeling of affection, and means an attraction, again, which is based on the law of attraction of homogeneity. Must you have empathy? Then that empathy must be deep within. And that is why there's a need to have that love, that attraction to others. When you now see someone is challenged, because you have that deep empathy, you now make provision with the little you have to make provision for that, or to grant that person the opportunity. This is what we have been discussing as love. Justice then follows that having granted an opportunity, the person who is to receive it should be able to receive it and make use of it. Not making use of that which has been granted is injustice. A simple example, a father sends a child to school out of love, not out of hatred, for the child to be able to grow emotionally interacting with others, and also to be able to mature, to understand how to speak a language in order to be able to cater for himself or herself before too long. The child goes to school and does nothing. 20 years later, the child is unable to interact with its neighbors because it doesn't understand the language. What will be one's response to such when the child itself is not inhibited but has refused to make use of the opportunity? These are the questions that people must ask themselves. On earth, many are granted the opportunity to mature through different manifestations. Do they make use of it for their own benefit? Do they make use of it for their own neighborhood or for their own neighbor? Do they make use of it for their environment? These are the questions one must ask themselves, rather than become so very petty. And so I need an example. The question is, man, how do you stand? How do you stand with the challenges that has come your way? How do you respond to these challenges? Or should man dismiss the challenges that have been made available for him to mature? Everyone wants to be loved. But you yourself, who wants to be loved, you should make provision such that such love may reach you in such a way that you are able to reach others. No one is an island in these things. Love and justice are one. Different aspects of one, different faces of one coin. They cannot be separated.
Thank you for that, Gregory. There's so many points you've made there. I already see that has to be always like a balance. You already mentioned that love and justice cannot be separated; they are one. And you said, people are looking for love. Yes, we want love. However, there is also a responsibility of how you act from the love you receive. So there's, like you say, it's an opportunity, but then there is also using the opportunity to advance yourself or to make use of it. And so that is your responsibility. Somebody gives you the love or gives you an opportunity, and then you are now meant to make use of it. So it's not one-sided. Oh, I just take everything, and nothing has to, I don't anything on my side. So even the questions, when somebody asks a question, the person in a way can answer the question himself. You just need to understand, like you say, the framework of how things work. So yeah, I've got another question from another listener, but before I go there, I just want to remind the listeners, this is Blessed Radio. It's a Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Uptrushin. And if you are interested in getting a copy of the Grail message or want to get some more information, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. And the topic we're discussing tonight is, what is love without justice? What is love without justice? And you can join in the discussion with any questions or comments. The number to contact us, our UK number, which is 07939641958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 00447939641958. You can call, text, or... So, Greg, I've received another question from another listener. It looks a little bit, let's say, not related to our topic, but I will ask it. It says, the question asks, is killing animals to feed oneself cruel, considering there are other means of diet available? So the question is killing animals to feed oneself cruel, considering there are other means of diet available?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now, yes.
Well, that is a very pertinent question. One should first look at the beginning. Over millennia, the human diet, not only the human diet, even the animals, the diet that they themselves had developed over time, includes the killing of animals. And that has been passed on to the human beings. One should know that the physical body which we use was inherited from the primates eons of time ago. And therefore, at this time, it will not be right for the equilibrium that had been reached to be cut short just like that. The best one can do for now is to reduce the consumption of animal flesh while increasing the consumption of vegetables. But one can tell you that even the consumption of plants and edible plants. There are some others who query it, that it is said one should not kill. So therefore, why should you go and cut down the plants and eat them? Some even go further and say one shouldn't eat anything at all. Those are extremes. It is true that the diet of man can gradually be changed so as not to force its body to the extreme reaction. However, that point is well noted, but by reducing gradually the consumption of meat and at the same time increasing the consumption of plants or vegetables, before too long, one will come to an equilibrium.
Thank you for that, Gregory. Yes, it looks like, can be a very controversial topic. Some people say you're killing animals, and as a human being, we are supposed to be above the animal and more mature, and so we should not be doing that. But you're saying if you're going to change, it has to be a gradual thing, not just like overnight say, okay, this is not right. We shouldn't eat animals. So thank you for that. I just wanted to say a little bit further about it, Gregory. Is what about like the natural way? Because we have talked about the laws of nature, and do you think so that when in quotes killing animals, I don't like that term killing animals, because another term is slaughter, because you don't call other animals killing another animal. They're eating the animal to live. It's not a murder that they're doing. It might look like a murder from if you just look at it in a sort of very simplistic manner. They're not killing for the sake of killing. They're killing, in quotes, killing or slaughtering, I should say, what we call slaughter as a human being, so that they can live, for them to live. So, Gregory, if you look at it in terms of nature, for us human beings, would you say that, because a person is saying the alternative diets, do we need this meat diet, or we can just be vegetarian at the end of the day?
The question here is, should we eat meat or not? Is it only meat? What about fish? Should we eat fish or not? Is it only fish? What about vegetables? Are we not doing harm to vegetables? After all, animals are higher than vegetables, and we ourselves claim to be higher than these animals. These animals eat vegetables, so shouldn't we go back and start eating vegetables? Some others will even take it further and say that vegetables themselves are living, and therefore, why should we eat vegetables? So the argument goes on and on and on. In the first instance, we ourselves must examine carefully what it is that we extract from the vegetables or from plants. What is it that we extract from these animals or meat diet? What is it that we extract from the fish diet? Only when these things have been considered very carefully can we make decisions. Otherwise, it will be rash. For when many, all of a sudden, abandon what they themselves, for generations, for millennia, have been consuming because they now feel, oh, we should not be eating this or we should not be eating that, then they are in great error. For the physical body, the equilibrium which has been established over millennia, over thousands, if not millions of years, that equilibrium will be disturbed. And when such equilibrium, the inner man or the human being is unable to function precisely or function in such a way that there will be balance. That means you now have the precipitation of certain eccentricities which will now come, which was not planned for. But there is always the need to examine very carefully and not just make sudden changes when it comes to the diet of human being.
Thank you for that, Gregory. I've just received another question now. It's more into the, let's say, the topic of for tonight's show, I would say. Just to remind listeners, the topic for tonight we're discussing is what is love without justice? And this question is, will it be appropriate for someone who has shown love to a fellow man in need to ask in return, to ask for a return at a later date, as this is a law and justice which closes the cycle? So I'll just repeat the question, Gregory. Will it be appropriate for someone who has shown love to his fellow man who is in need to ask for a return at a later date, as this is the law of justice which closes the cycle? Maybe I can put it another way, Gregory. Yeah, go ahead.
Don't worry.
Yeah.
Again, when things are observed externally, one must strive to understand the motive behind what you see externally. There are some whose motive in carrying out these things, so the motive is to expect massive returns for the future. There are others whose motive is genuinely to be of assistance, such that that person in need is assisted to improve their state or their condition. One is calculative, the other one is genuine. Now, which one is true? That should be the question which is thrown to the questioner. Which one should one prefer? To be genuine or to be false?
Thank you for that. You just highlighted, as you pointed out, what is the motive behind something. So as soon as you look at that, you immediately can tell, where is love, where is justice. I've got a quote I'd like to share with the listeners. This is not from the Grail message. This is from Martin Luther King Jr. It is, power without love is reckless and abusive, and love without power is sentimental and anemic. Power at its best is love implementing the demands of justice, and justice at its best is power correcting everything that stands against love. I'll repeat that. This is a quote from Martin Luther King. Power without love is reckless and abusive, and love without power is sentimental and anemic. Power at its best is love implementing the demands of justice, and justice at its best is power correcting everything that stands against love. And Gregory, I want to pick a question on the situation in the news at the moment. I'm just going to read out the question and then refer to what is happening at the moment in the world. So in today's world, and even perhaps throughout history, we have seen divisions based on race, tribe, region, religion, sect, nationalism, political and health, green, and various movements. Each people or group wants to have their freedom and homeland and right to practice without interference and discrimination by other groups. And they make claims of injustices such as, that are happening to them, that groups I'm talking about. And sometimes you hear this shout of no justice, no peace. And then this is like, you could say, Gregory, some oppressed people shouting that against their, let's say, government or what is ever happening in society. You hear that no justice, no peace. Sometimes you hear that. And then unfortunately you find that the people in power in many parts of the world are authoritarian. And sometimes, so Gregory, you wonder, how can love and justice work in this place? Should people, people who rule by force will, and they believe that people will only learn through force. And so the people who are being oppressed, they think, what can we do? Maybe we need to take up arms or violence to overthrow them, or because maybe that's the language this oppressors will understand. But the only with that situation, Gregory, is that the people in power have overwhelming resources compared to the people being oppressed. So, because they use torture and brutality against the protesters to retain the power. And I'm just using this example again. It's not as if it's unique to one country, but for example, we just had some election in Belarus, which is a country next to Russia, and the existing leader claimed he had a landslide victory, while the opposition leader said they had the victory, massive victory, and from the, let's say, what you see on the streets, it does look like the existing leader did lose, because he doesn't seem to have much support, and it's quite obvious from the protests from the people happening. The only problem is that the current leader seems to have overwhelming force on his side and is able to just continue. So my question, Gregory, on this matter is, when those who are oppressed are in this situation, facing overwhelming force, how should they act, taking account of love and justice? Should they become violent? Should they do it peacefully? And how can they achieve their goal? Because they have not, let's say, violated themselves. They just want, let's say, justice of their vote being counted properly.
The purpose of man on earth is to come and experience and mature in the process of experiencing, which experiencing must be in accordance with the laws of nature or the laws of creation through which he himself has come into existence. Part of that process calls for vigilance. Part of that process also calls for loving one's neighbor as oneself. For whatever one has done to another, along the line, it will return laden with reactions, good or bad, here or hereafter, to the ones who initiated it. Therefore, in scenarios such as you painted, this has always happened for millennia. In the recent past, that was what caused what one referred to as the First World War. Even before then, there were wars. This has always been the problem. As if that didn't suffice, there was a Second World War. And people wanted freedom. Freedom to make their decisions. Freedom to mature. But the sad thing with all this, many a person who is being sort of oppressed as such, watch that personality. Once that person becomes very vigilant in such a way as to prevent and to act against such oppression, before too long, because he or she hasn't learned the necessary lesson, that personality becomes the oppressor. From time, whether being Roman Empire or the British Empire or the German Empire or one's relation with fellow human spirit, all because they have violated that simple rule: love thy neighbor as thyself. Thy neighbor who had set out from the same source in order to mature from far away from home. It is expected through diligence and vigilance to be able to support your fellow human spirits such that they themselves will mature just like yourself. In such a way, one is able to go back home happily and joyfully. The question which you raised, how should those people who are oppressed, how should they themselves act? In the first case, vigilance. Vigilance in such a way that they shouldn't destroy their fellow human spirits who, for a short time, have the wrong impression. But they must defend themselves vigorously. Vigor must be involved. And at the same time, should make it clear to themselves that what they themselves have suffered through suppression, they themselves must never, ever do such to fellow human spirits who, like them, is searching, is striving to become self-conscious. With that, many of these happenings will vanish, for no one should remain silent in what they sense as injustice. One should rise up and speak, or in one's activity, one should ensure such injustice is not meted out to others, for they themselves should not tolerate injustice. For to do that only means to embolden that person who is meting out such injustice, such cheating. So this helps to galvanize, to animate many who have accepted many things which they should not be accepting.
Thank you for that, Gregory. Now I want to pick something you could say more spiritual, although it's all connected with love and justice, or love without justice. And what I want to talk about now is, a lot of Christians, believe that Jesus died to take away their sins, or humanity's sins, and objectively looks very strange, because Jesus being innocent, how can he take, and we are the guilty one, and he comes to die for us to take away our sins, and maybe you think, oh, because the sin we carry is so much as humanity. We've done so much terrible wrong that we can't redeem it ourselves, and so maybe a sacrifice that only God can remove this sin, and so Jesus had to be sent, to show God's mercy to us and remove our sin. So I just want to understand, Gregory, is that uh, you know, and that is a belief, of course. People are believing this thing, even on outwardly it doesn't seem right. So, is that correct that Jesus, by dying for us, he removed our sins?
Well, the key thing one should always strive to understand is looking at the opportunities that man is granted. The opportunities such that laws were given. Laws, one of the laws, the so-called Ten Commandments, says, "Thou shalt not kill." These laws came through Moses, expressed very simply. Will the same Almighty now send his inborn son to be killed? That would be the first question. Secondly, the word sacrifice has not been understood. To sacrifice doesn't mean to kill at all. To sacrifice only means to make use of one's innate abilities to achieve a goal. If a father goes out to work, to collect resources, to send his children to school, we say the father or the mother made sacrifices. For those resources would have been used somewhere else. Did we say the father must be killed? Did we say the children must be killed? So the expression sacrifice has been wrongly understood. Christ came to show the way. He pointed out the way in following the laws of creation, how man should come to maturity. But because at that time, those people who thought they knew better, they didn't like him, they went after him and put him to death. So that was murder. Murdering somebody is not sacrifice. Murdering someone is murder. Therefore, such will not take away anybody's sin. In fact, it will increase it. For the help that has been sent to you was murdered. That increases the sin. And that also blocks the way for further understanding, because they themselves do not understand what sacrifice is.
Thank you for that, Gregory. There's something. What I'll do is I'll wait towards the end of the show. I'll read something from the Grail message, which is pertinent to what you've said there. I think it'll be a good way to round off the show, to highlight, how love and justice work. So I've received a couple more questions while we've been talking. They're quite different from what we've been talking about just now. I think I'll do this question first because it's similar to a question we were talking about earlier on. The question, the listener is asking this question. I sense from your responses that giving must ask for something in return in order to balance out the action. So I'll just repeat that, Gregory. The listener is asking. I sense from your responses that giving must ask for something in return in order to balance out the action. Did you hear that?
Yes. No, no such point was made. For when you give, it's like you have sown. When the returns will come, you yourself do not know. Do not forget, only the opportunity has been granted to you to be able to give. Because that opportunity has been granted, you yourself have fulfilled. The returns you are unable to predict. There are some returns depending on your inner attitude, which is almost simultaneous. There are some other returns which will come much later. It's like a sower that goes out to sow. It depends on what you're sowing. There are people who go to the farm and sow maize. There are some who sow rice. There are some who plant apples. So when these things are sown, the returns vary. So one should not at the same time start demanding a return. When the returns will come depend on the processes in nature. That is how it is. Just like you have been provided an opportunity, others are also provided with certain opportunities in order to mature. It's like one is able to breathe out, and in doing that, in accordance with the laws of nature, one breathes in. The returns vary. They do not come at the same time. And one cannot intellectually say, this is what I want to come. Else, it will not be genuine. One has to go in such a way that one's activities are genuine. If, however, everything that man does is done in a calculating fashion, then one may not refer to many things as being genuine. And such are not helpful on the long run.
Gregory, from what you've just said there, it sounds like, yeah, we can give and we will receive, but it's not our right to demand, let's say, a particular reward for what we have given. We should leave it, let's say, to nature, or just whatever happens to happen. Let the result come by itself, rather than, oh, I gave you, let's say, 2 gold coins to help you, and I must have 2 gold coins back, or whatever, let's say, you would like to have back, by a particular time that you decide. Am I correct to understand you? We shouldn't have our own expectations?
Well, what one will make very clear is that the opportunity to give only arose when you yourself, deep within yourself, sense an opportunity to pass on what has been passed on to you to give to that person who is in need. On most occasions, it is not that the given one is so, in quotes, successful, is so diligent, that so much has been passed on to that person. The other person may only offer thanks, which thanks may spring up from deep within themselves. And that compensatory value will bring many a thing to the giver, which the giver is unable to ascertain using one's own limited intellect. But as long as the activity is genuine, one gives genuinely, and the receiver is able, through thanks or from some other way, able to give in reciprocal action thanks, which thanks likely to rise on high and to bring more blessing to that person who has given. That means a cycle is then completed. But it will be wrong for one to go out calculatingly giving out things because he or she wants this or that.
Thank you for that answer, Gregory. Dear listeners, you're listening to Bless Radio. It's the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abdushin. And if you're interested in getting a copy of the Grail message or want some more information, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that. www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. And the topic we're discussing tonight is what is love without justice? What is love without justice? You can join in the show with any questions or comments. The number to contact us on our UK number is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text or use WhatsApp. Gregory, I've got a couple more questions actually. This one is about, I'll just read it out. It says, what is the rule in offering loans and demanding exponential returns? In other words, what rate should be charged for giving in order to avoid a Shylock labeling? So I'm going to just read that question out again. What is the rule in offering loans and demanding exponential returns? In other words, what rate should be charged for giving in order to avoid a Shylock labeling? And of course, in case somebody doesn't know, Shylock is the character in one of the Shakespeare plays, which is, I can't remember the actual play now, but he was a money lender and he was, let's say, charging an extortionate rate of interest. And I think, if I remember right, Gregory, if you didn't pay up on time, he was saying, I'm going to take a pound of your flesh, the flesh of a human being. If you don't pay, if that human being doesn't pay. So that was the condition. He said not to put that part of the question, but he was very extortionate, it looks like, in what he charged for his. So Gregory, and just what rule should there be to,
These discussions we hold on Tuesdays are based on spiritual laws. Money currency is an invention of man, not an invention of the laws of creation. And therefore, the laws which hold for creation or for nature cannot be applied in such a way as to discuss things which are mere flimsy inventions. For you'll find that with money or with coin, you can function or completeness. The advice one may give is based, which says, love thy neighbor as thyself, which means, must you give out assistance, then do it in such a way that if you yourself were to receive an assistance, you will not oppress yourself, such that you will not also oppress your neighbor. That is what we say. It's not an institution of nature or of creation. Today, many talk about the gold. If everyone is to find the gold coins in every city, and the streets are paved with gold, then how do you settle things? Because the gold is always there. What nature provides, which is air, these key things are free. Why are they not charging for it? Why is nature not charging for it? Nature grants the opportunity, or creation grants the opportunity. Therefore, if we wish to be just in our activities, it should be done in such a way that it will be a win-win from both parties. The charges of extortion, all sort of things will vanish. These are representative that the human spirit, or those who put this in place, are not matured enough.
Thank you for your answer, Gregory. I just have a little bit of a follow-on from what you said there. Does that mean we shouldn't be using money at all? Because, I mean, there was a time there was no money, of course, and there would be some sort of exchange, for a service, because obviously, let's say one person is a farmer and another person is carpenter, both need each other's service, or one of them needs the other person's service. And so let's say the farmer needs a carpenter to build a shed or table or something, and he will maybe give, I just use an example, make it up, like maybe he gives one of his goats or something as an exchange for that. So are you saying, Gregory, everybody should just work for free and just, or should there not be an exchange, some sort of exchange?
One is only stressing there must be balance in all that we do. How that balance comes across varies. Today, you hear of people who produce oil. You go to other places, there are some who produce gold. You go to other places, there are some who do nothing but wait for those currencies and trade in currencies. What efforts have they put in helping to ensure their neighbors live well? Nothing. So you now have the scenario where people sit in one place without doing any meaningful work, but trade in currencies or the difference in currencies. And you find that in a matter of overnight, the currencies fall because there's nothing to back them. So there must be balance. That balance has to come about through the way in which things are measured. So a cup of rice in a third world country and a cup of rice in a so-called first world country, there have to be some good measures. Which measures will ensure that one is not oppressed? For whatever oppresses the other one cannot be right. The way money has been used so far has been wrong. You yourself can say it with those who deal with currency trading. For who issues these currencies? Different nations. And in issuing these currencies, they wish to make sure they take from other nations goods or services, and they won't pay the appropriate balance to other nations. It happens almost everywhere. Some will take some products like cocoa, and they will pay very little for it. So these are all these imbalances are what cause, grudges, and before too long leads to war.
Thank you, Gregory, for illustrating that so sort of graphically. That is, very clear, the consequences of these sort of ways how we've been working. Now, Gregory, this has also been in the news just recently. In fact, it's even today's news, I will say. As you know, last week, Gregory, we had the A-level results in England, Wales, and Northern Ireland, actually. And I think a week or two before that, we had the A-level results in Scotland. And, these young school pupils, as you know, there wasn't actually an exam to do the A-levels. It was a estimated result, and let's say the government used they call it algorithm to predict that result, but unfortunately a lot of maybe 100,000, many thousands, let's say hundreds of thousands of students seem to have are very upset at the results they were given, and of course it spoiled their chance to go into university. And as I said, the thing had happened in Scotland already a couple of weeks before, and they did a U-turn, where they said, okay, we'll go back to what the school teachers predicted rather than what this algorithm was predicting, because it was not, let's say, being fair to all the individual cases. There's standardization going on, and of course some people have been too downgraded that they couldn't even go into the uni. So my question, Gregory, on this point is that you might wonder, well, what's that got to do with love and justice? But in a way, we're talking about children here who are turning into adults, and it's their life's future. So there's a love and justice involved in that, how they're dealt with, how they're treated. And so, Gregory, what I want to say really, Gregory, the government doesn't have any malicious attitude to any group of people in this regard. Just it seems there was incompetence. There seems to be sort of lack of understanding in how things work. So my question, Gregory, is when we want to do love and justice to our fellow human beings, and we put up a system, for example, which we haven't tested before, and now we get, the results of it, which are, let's say, not very popular or not very satisfying. Is there a way, Gregory, before we go and implement such a system, and I'm using this one as an example because it's in the news, but I'm sure it could be other things in here. Is there a way for, something that you haven't tried before to know that it's going to be, let's say, give justice, or like before you implement it? Or is it only that we seem to enact the proposals and then see the consequences and then rewind if we find out this is not going to work?
It will be foolhardy for anyone to design a plane or to design a vehicle. Let's say you're designing a jumbo. You're not even sure it's going to fly, and you put people in there, and you said, okay, we're going to be operating a flight. What then happens? It means because one has not tested, refined, put in all the different parameters, it is catastrophe. The same thing happens with a vaccine. Before a vaccine is released for many to use for a particular ailment, that vaccine would have been tried again, and again. Not doing that will tend to rashness. What one needs to add here is algorithms are not sufficient to define or describe the happenings in nature. There needs to be more to it. As with everything, when you wish to go for a journey, you prepare for it. When you need to go for a sprint in athletics, you prepare for it. When you need to do marathon, you prepare for it again and again. You do not jump to do marathon when you have never walked 1 mile. Why? Because along the line, you will drop. So whatever man needs to do, these things have to be weighed very carefully, not only intellectually, but also intuitively. Only in such activities can man have confidence that whatever they have put out will not collapse, that whatever structure they have put in place will not collapse.
Thank you for that, Gregory. I'm going to take the opportunity now, since we are reaching the end of the show, to read something from the Grail message for the listeners. It is from the lecture Salvation, Redemption. And of course, the topic we've been talking about so far is what is love without justice? And I'm reading this out to highlight, how love and justice work together. So this is, listeners, from the Grail message In the Light of Truth by Abdushin, and the lecture called is Salvation, Redemption, and it's the beginning of the lecture. Salvation, redemption. How often already have human beings pictured these words wrongly to themselves when they wanted to see in them unconditional help from the light, to the exclusion of the all-holy justice. This implies a total error that is already evident today in everything devised by the human mind. They want to make God into their helpful slave, who is only to be considered in connection with the welfare of insignificant earthmen. Just ask yourselves for once about this. Throw light on your thoughts without extenuation. Delve into them clearly and objectively, and then you will have to confess that your whole thinking has never been attuned other than to the idea upon your petitions. God should always serve and help you to fulfill your wishes. Of course, you do not speak of it in terms of that would be more according to your nature of your being. But as always, give another name to your false volition, putting on little cloaks of deceptive humility, and only speaking of granting instead of serving. Yet this does not alter the fact that your whole conduct, even when praying, is dominated by evil and cannot be pleasing to God. At last be honest with yourselves for once, and tremble at the recognition of how you have hitherto always stood before your God, stubborn, arrogant, and discontented, hypocritical because of your superficiality, thinking of Him only in misery and distress, so that He may help you out of the consequences of your actions. But you've never asked beforehand whether your decisions really were in according to His will. What are you men before the omnipotence and the sublimity of the Lord, whom you would have rule over you, just as it pleases you? With what presumption you would like to enforce here on earth those laws that come from your narrow way of thinking, and that are not in harmony with the divine laws that He placed in creation. You so often exercise your wrong volition with a cunning and evil-mindedness that is inexcusable before God, harming your neighbors thereby to gain advantages for yourselves, either in money or goods, or to acquire a reputation with those for whom you do it. All this will now fall heavily upon you with the weight of a mountain, for nothing of all your wrongdoing could be cancelled in the law of reciprocal action as having been redeemed, unless you freed yourselves through the change in your volition for what is good. The barriers that still hold back the collapse of the piled up mass of reprisals are torn away. Everything rolls irresistibly on earthly humanity, who would like to continue in spiritual indolence and arrogance in order to enforce their will, which has long since strayed far from the will of God. This, however, is the end for the dominion of all darkness on earth. It will collapse and drag down all those human beings who have sided with it. But in the midst of the thundering roar of the collapse, the word rings out. Victoriously it resounds through the lands, so that those who honestly strive for it may still save themselves. The condition implied is that each one must himself strive to recognize the word of the Lord as salvation. If he doubts and allows this last opportunity to pass without making use of it with all his strength, he will never again be in this position, and the moment for him to find redemption is forever lost. Salvation, redemption will only come to him in the Word, which he must absorb, so that by living in accordance with it, he may release himself from the bonds that hold him down through misunderstanding and distorting the true concepts. I'm going to stop there. Gregory, is there anything you'd like to say to the listeners to end the show for tonight?
One may only say that love and justice are one.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for making it so very short and simple there. Yes, dear listeners, I want to say thank you for joining us tonight. Um, Hope you enjoyed the show and found it, you know, um, I will say enlightening and also giving clarity about, how we see things, what is love and justice. And I just want to point out, as the point of this show is to introduce you to the Grail message in the light of truth by Abrushin. So I encourage you to pick up the Grail message, examine it for yourselves. Then you will see I've just read out a part of the Grail message, a lecture of the Grail message here, and hopefully that gives you a taste of the explanation it gives about life and how love and justice work. So I encourage you to pick up the Grail message for yourselves, examine it for yourselves. And as I said earlier, you can go on to this website if you, for any information, or if you want to get a copy for yourself, and that is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that, www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. Thank you for joining us tonight, and we'll be back next week, Tuesday, as usual, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. with another new topic. Hope you can join us. I wish you all a great week. God bless. Take care, everybody.